I intentionally replaced my flight seat with an exhausted mother with a screaming baby, placing them right next to my girlfriend's seat, and my girlfriend couldn't even say a single word looking into my eyes. We had been planning this trip to her sister's wedding in Cabo for 7 months. Everything was supposed to be a team effort, but the second we got to the airport, she decided that our team only had one MVP. When we first booked the flights on Expedia back in October, we sat at the kitchen table with a single calculator. We both agreed that traveling is expensive, so we set a hard rule. We bought 2 standard economy tickets on Delta, splitting the cost exactly down to the penny, $412 each. We filed the receipts in our shared budget app, and that was that. I am 6'2", and coach seats are brutal on my knees, but I agreed to it because we were saving for a house down payment. We promised we would stick together through the long, crowded hall. But this morning at the check-in kiosk, the screen flashed an alert offering a single luxury upgrade to first class for the 5-hour flight. Before I could even read the screen, she grabbed the stylus, scanned her frequent flyer card, and claimed the seat for herself. I stood there, completely blindsided, watching the machine spit out her new seat assignment in row 2, seat 2B. I looked at her, completely confused, and asked what she was doing. She just shrugged her shoulders, grabbed her bag, and walked toward security. When we sat down at the airport Starbucks to wait for boarding, I tried to talk to her calmly. I told her that it felt really unfair that we split the cost of the trip to stay budget-friendly, but now she was leaving me alone in the back of the plane. I reminded her how bad my legs cramp up in those tiny seats. She didn't even look up from scrolling through her Instagram. She just rolled her eyes, took a sip of her iced coffee, and shrugged. "It's just a short flight," she said, her voice completely dismissive. "You're a grown man. You can handle coach for a few hours. Don't be so dramatic. My back has been hurting all week, so I deserve the legroom. You'll survive in row 34. I kept trying to reason with her while the gate agent started calling Group 1. I told her it wasn't about the seat itself. It was about the principle of making a joint agreement and then breaking it the second a shiny opportunity popped up. The argument spilled over into the boarding line. Finally, she snapped. She turned around right in front of the gate agent, looked me dead in the eye, and whispered fiercely, "I already changed my ticket, and I am not giving up my first-class seat. You're just going to have to deal with it." A cold, calculated calm washed over me. I didn't yell. I didn't try to argue anymore. The heavy knot of frustration in my chest suddenly turned into pure, quiet focus. I simply smiled, nodded, and let her walk past the gate agent onto the jet bridge. I watched her premium leather shoes disappear around the corner. Then, I stepped out of the boarding line and walked straight up to the customer service counter. I pulled out my phone, opened my own Delta app, and looked at my business mileage balance. I had over 80,000 corporate miles saved up from my work trips last year. I laid my ID on the counter, looked at the agent, and asked if seat 2A, the empty first-class spot right next to my girlfriend, was still available. She tapped on her keyboard for a moment, nodded, and said it was open for a premium mileage upgrade. I told her to lock it in immediately. I handed over my ID and asked the gate agent to print the first-class boarding pass for seat 2A, but to put it directly under that mother's name instead of mine. The agent stopped typing and looked up at me, her eyes widening as she realized exactly what I was doing. She looked back at the stressed mom, then back at me, her expression softening into pure respect. Without a single word, she gave me a quiet, appreciative nod, pulled up the reservation, and her fingers flew across the keyboard to make the switch. I boarded the plane during the final economy call and walked down the aisle toward the back. As I passed through the first-class cabin, I saw my girlfriend already settled in seat 2B. She was sipping a complimentary glass of champagne, looking completely smug and comfortable. But right next to her, in seat 2A, the young mother was happily setting up her bulky plastic car seat on premium leather chair. The toddler was already bouncing up and down, and the infant was wailing at the top of its lungs. My girlfriend's face was completely pale. She was staring at the crying baby in absolute horror, her hands trembling as she clutched her champagne glass. She looked up and caught my eye as I walked past. She stared at me with intense panic and silent rage, begging me with her eyes to do something, to switch with her, to save her. I didn't stop walking. I didn't even slow down. I just paused for a split second right next to her row, adjusted the strap on my carry-on bag, and looked down at her, and walked straight back to row 34. Sat down in my cramped economy seat and smiled as the plane pushed back from the gate.